YouTube is up. Facebook is up. Riverside is up. Welcome to the wonderful world of Generation X, where we get together every Sunday night on or about 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. I'm not the promptest Gen Xer in the whole wide world, but we get together to talk about the things, the experiences, the memories, the things that shaped us as Gen Xers. Kids of the late 60s, kids of the 70s, kids of the early 80s, in an era where pop culture reigned supreme and no one was paying any attention to what we were watching, what we were doing, or what we were listening to. As you guys start to pile in, say hello, drop a chat in the chat box. Feel free to ask questions because we have a guest with us tonight, and it's none other than William Keck, a name you may not necessarily be familiar with, but I promise you as the hour continues, and we talk about this book that he wrote, When You Step Upon a Star, you may not recognize his name, but you'll recognize the names of the people we talk about. What's going on, Doreen? Good to see you coming in from Tampa Bay. BJ, hello. Dan, hello. Let's get started. Will, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, John. Well, it was so great to meet you at Fanboy Expo, and we got to meet each other next to Lindsay Wagner and Lee Majors and the cast of Dallas, all of our favorite people. And it was like being in a time machine. And I found like a new best friend there who just seems like my brother from another mother. It's so excited to be part of your world today. Thank you for having me on.
Well, you're very welcome. So Will and I we met at Fan Expo, and he's a moderator. He's got my dream job. He sits on stage with the cast of the Goonies as they had their reunion. He got to ask questions of Lindsay Wagner. He got to be up there with Weird Al. And I mean, the likes of those people. What's going on, Tony? Hello. Ice, hello. Travin, send me all the rum. You can have all the rum. Those of you mentioning the Bills game, love you guys. If you're a Chiefs fan, so sorry, but not sorry. Dude, it made my night. We were standing there, and actually, you'll know his name better than I will, but Ray from Dallas actually got together and started talking with Steve Canale.
Steve Canale, exactly. Yeah. And then we had Patrick Duffy and Linda Gray, Charlene Tilton, Sheree Wilson. Yeah, it was a pretty great group there. Of course, Linda's my buddy.
Let's start with this. William used to work as a reporter, a journalist. Maybe a journalist of a certain color. I don't know if it's yellow journalism or not. I'm not sure. But you worked for the National Enquirer in your formative years. You were young.
I did. Yeah, I was in my 20s. It was during the whole OJ situation. So the Enquirer went from being just kind of a joke to being this well-respected newspaper. And other legitimate journalists were quoting us. We had the New York Times coming to our office to interview us because we were actually getting the big scoops on that trial. And then from then on, we broke some news about the murder of Bill Cosby's son. And from then on, we kind of became respected, which was very unusual for us. Because as I write in my book, I was the one who was stealing people's garbage, and I was hiding in trees at cemeteries and sneaking into hospital rooms to try to find out what people were dying from. I mean, it was horrible because, John, like you, I dreamed of meeting the Bradys and the Carringtons and the Ewings and all these people we grew up with. But I was meeting them in the most horrible, horrible ways you can imagine. So it's a case of be careful what you wish for, because I got it.
So I was looking at your Amazon reviews on this book, and for those of you that want it, this is not a paid appearance by Will. He's just two Gen Xers with connections, and I wanted him on, but I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you can find this on Amazon. I don't know if there's a better place to get it, but your Amazon reviews, dude, are amazing. Very enjoyable read, hilarious and wildly entertaining. Couldn't put it down. I told Will it felt more like sitting down with a friend that has these amazing stories for coffee or for beer or over a glass of wine than it did reading a book. It's so conversational. And you talk about the meetings you had with Lindsay Wagner. That was at a funeral for Lindsay?
Well, it wasn't her funeral, thank God.
No, of course.
It was her father's funeral. So, I mean, the deal is that I'm still driving around town here in LA. My license plate is bionic. So it's known that I'm a huge fan of this franchise. So I said to my editors, if there's ever a chance to do a story on Lindsay Wagner or Lee Majors, I'd love to. So my editor called me in one day. He said, hey, good news. We have a Lindsay Wagner story for you. I'm like, okay, I get to go to her home, interview her. No, you've got to go to her father's funeral and not only crash it, but find out who the young man is she's dating. So I did that. I introduced myself to her young boyfriend, her boy toy, her bionic.
So she was dating a much younger man at the time.
Yeah, she was, I think, in her late 40s. He was in his 20s. And so I met him. He was lovely. And Lindsay came over, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the moment I've dreamt of my entire life. And she said, thank you so much for coming. Did you know my father? I said, well, actually, no. I said, I got to tell you the truth. I'm with the Inquirer. And she seemed almost a little entertained by it. But she said, well, listen, you found out my boyfriend's name. I can see you got photos. I see your photographer in the bushes across the street. What do you want? And I said, well, maybe a caption for the photos. And she said, all right, I'll give you a caption. And she said, F you. And so here is my childhood idol telling me basically to F off. And you know what? And I said, listen, I get it. I totally understand. And I think she saw that I legitimately was crushed. She called me back over. She said, okay, listen, what do you want? What can I help you with? And she helped me out. And she was so smart. By the end of this whole interaction, she and her boyfriend were trying to launch a line of jewelry, Native American inspired jewelry. And the whole piece became about their jewelry line. So that was the deal. Everybody hated the Inquirer so much that when somebody gave us the time of day, we sort of bent over backwards and gave them the page. There's another story in the book about Adam West, Batman. And I was sent to Hawaii to find out about his daughter trying to kill her in-laws. She was in prison. I did a prison interview with her. And by the time Adam West got involved in this story, the story became Grandpa Batman to the rescue, raising grandkids while daughter does time. And he gave me the photos, he gave me the story. So that's an example of how celebrities, they're not required to, but if they choose to, they can really take over the narrative. And now, all these years later, that's exactly what's happened, because they're relying less and less on magazines, and they're all telling their own stories through social media.
Right. Well, I mean, and you read the book, and some celebrities took advantage. Some looked at your interactions with a sense of humor. Some, maybe rightly so, were aggressively angry over the intrusions.
Oh, yeah, I got beaten up.
Go into that a little bit.
So yeah, I mean, I name names. I name all the names in the book, but near the end of the book, there's one chapter where legally I'm not allowed to say who beat me up, but there's enough hints where people are kind of guessing it. It was a 90s sitcom. It was an actor who ended up getting a lot of trouble soon after this happened. Tall guy. I'm saying too much already. But yeah, he beat the crap out of me and tried to drag me into his house. And all the neighbors came out. And I think he finally got a little freaked out that he was making such a scene in his neighborhood. And he let me go. And then our lawyers dealt with it. And I mean, I got a little bit of money. But yeah, it was a really horrible experience.
So, and here's the thing that I want people to understand: from where you started to where you ended up. So these same celebrities, Lindsay Wagner being a great example.
John, 1 second. I have Linda here is saying, I love how you spun that. And I love that question. So I would love to find out a little bit more from Linda about how I spun it, because she's right. All I did was spin stories to make myself look okay. So is it possible to interact with Linda?
Oh, I'm sure Linda's a regular in the chat. She'll pop back and forth and reiterate, but that's what I was responding to a little bit as well, because as people take a look at where you were, and maybe rightly so, be like, well, that was a horrible thing to do. You were hiding in trees during weddings or funerals, and you were going to hospitals to see if people were sick or dying. You were trying to do, pay off nurses and interns and whomever to get the information you wanted. And yet where you ended up is on stage with these people. And I saw them embracing you. So it's not where we start. As a generation, where we started was years ago. Where we ended up could be someplace completely different. And now you've produced for these people. You've worked on, so many different shows. Entertainment Tonight, USA Today, I think you worked for. You were on Josh. There's so much you've done since then. Oh, she was saying the Adam West story.
That's the whole deal is, we don't want to be judged by who we were in our 20s. I did a lot of really stupid things. And I know that we avoid, and we're going to avoid politics on here, but when people are adults and they're being judged for something that happened in college, I just think that's the time when you're figuring yourself out. I came to LA, I wanted to meet these celebrities. I ended up getting this job for the Inquirer. It gave me access to these celebrities, but I ultimately got out of it. It was like working for the mafia. You would do these horrible things and you would get more money. You would get praise from your editors. And finally, after a few years of this, I said, guys, I'm out of this. and I had to start over. But yes, like you said, I ended up working for for USA Today for 5 years. I was an editor and columnist for TV Guide for 6 years. Worked for Hallmark Channel, and I ended up I was invited to their homes instead of trying to sneak in their homes, and it was a totally different kind of situation. Ultimately, at Hallmark Channel, I found myself as a producer hiring them. I was bringing them on as my guest. And a lot of times I had a chance to apologize to them in person. And that's ultimately what the book is as well. It's my apology to them. And several of the celebrities who I wronged, they took, I invited them to tell their side of the story. And that's what they did. They took a page to say, you know what, I remember you back then, and you were kind of a punk, but I forgive you. Let's start over. So it was kind of a opportunity for redemption, which I really appreciated.
So I'm going to name a celebrity.
Yeah.
And in one word, I want you to just say the first word that comes to your mind, the word that comes to your mind.
Okay.
What are you pointing to?
Thank you, Angela. I'm just saying, Angela, thank you. None of us want to be judged by what we did in our 20s, right? I mean, John, would you want to be judged by the kind of guy you were in college or in high school?
Sure, go for it. There's no pictures. There's no video. There's no proof. Have at it. If the people that know enough to hurt me, it's kind of mutually self-assured destruction. So the people that knew me in my 20s, I know them as well. We're the USSR in the United States with missiles pointing in both directions. No one's telling stories.
I love it. Okay, but your game, please. Go ahead.
So yeah, I'm just going to name a celebrity, and you say either the first thing that comes into your mind, or if that would cause a lawsuit, the next thing that comes into your mind.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Let's go with Larry Hagman.
Liver. And I say liver because I was assigned to track down who his anonymous liver donor was, and that was quite an accomplishment. I got in a lot of trouble with Larry.
How many? Now, at least one that we know of, correct?
Well, yeah. Let's kind of move on from that.
Henry Winkler, who just turned 80.
Henry Winkler, yeah, I know. He's 80 years old. I mean, Mensch, just the nicest, sweetest guy in the world. And he can embrace the whole Fonzie thing. I interviewed Tina Louise recently, who 50 years later, 60 years later, still will kill you if you mention Ginger and Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she was not a fan of that. All right, my first television crush, Catherine Bach.
Oh my God, prayers. She's in the hospital. I just heard that she was supposed to make an appearance at an event this week, and she was rushed to the hospital with some kind of embolism, I heard. Now, this is what I heard, I should say. So, but aside from that, she is the coolest, sexiest, sweetest girl in the world. I was planning a Dukes of Hazzard reunion on Hallmark. And just before everybody was supposed to come to this reunion, Tom Wopat got busted for doing something very, very naughty behind the scenes of the play he was in. And we had to cancel the whole reunion. John Schneider was going to bring the General Lee, and Catherine was going to bring her some of her fixins that she made at her diner, and the whole thing fell apart thanks to Tom Wopat. Bad boy.
Prayers out to Catherine Bach, Daisy Duke. I had no idea. Literally one of my childhood crushes. Linda says, I'm making you feel old. Nothing we ever talk about should ever make us feel old, because I've said it a million times. I would rather be old and have experienced the life I got to live in the 70s, 80s, and 90s than be young and not have had those years. If you told me instead of being born in 1970, I could be born in 2010 and be a whole hell of a lot younger right now, I wouldn't take the deal. Because if we're fortunate, we all get old. But we didn't all get to grow up in an era that straddled no tech and all tech. I think we were so blessed to be the kids we were when we were kids. Travin asks Weird Al Yankovic. Let's go to that.
Oh, yeah. I just got to play with him. He's terrific. He is weird. He is absolutely weird, and it was very interesting because when I was doing these panels with these celebrities at Fanboy Expo, you have to really adapt to the personality you're dealing with. And somebody like Lindsay Wagner is very kind of, you were there in that seminar. She's very mind, body, spirit, and you've got to kind of just get into her Zen way of thinking, or else you'll be lost. And then somebody like Weird Al, he answers in very quick 3-word answers. And so I was constantly having to move, question. But he has a great sense of humor. He's able to laugh at himself. He's very secretive, though, about who he's going to work with next. I tried to get some information out of him. Is he going to work with Sabrina Carpenter? And he's thinking, though. He's always thinking about what he's going to do next.
Very cool. Doreen says Sly Stallone. Any interactions with Sylvester Stallone?
Oh my gosh, my friend slept with his brother,
Oh,
um, Frank, and she probably wouldn't care if I said her name. Hi, Ronnie Lynn, if you're watching, good to go. No, I have not had any interactions with Sly.
Brady Bunch. Let's go with Christopher Knight.
Oh my God, no, he's my Brady. He's my brother. Chris took me to the Brady house recently, and Chris was
Oh,
very nice.
dude.
Yeah. He took me there, and he wrote 2 pages in my book because I talked about how I dreamt of being a Brady. I was an only child, no other siblings to play with. I dreamt of being in this house, and I kind of wanted Robert Reed to be my surrogate dad. I write about how his death is kind of what propelled me out to LA to start meeting these people before more of them died. And so Chris writes this essay on why it is we all dream of being them, and also how it's not so much fun being them all the time. How they're
Yeah.
not that cheery family, and they go through all the kind of struggles that really real families go through. I was behind the scenes of the 35th anniversary special that the Brady's did for MTV, and I wrote a story in USA Today how at that time they were not a happy bunch. There was still a lot of kind of controversy, and Susan Olsen was there, and everyone said that Susan had not been in the Very Brady Christmas because she wasn't. She was on her honeymoon. Well, what Chris Knight told me was the reason she didn't do a Very Brady Christmas is because Maureen McCormick got all the money, and there wasn't enough money left to give to Susan Olsen. So a lot of these secrets came out that day, and I kind of got in trouble for telling it as it was. But I had a chance to make it up to all of them over the years as well. I mean, Florence Henderson, sweetest thing in the world. I love all of them. They're all very, very different people, but they don't disappoint.
So, based on Jean-Claude Kevin wants to know if you've ever had any interaction with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
That's so interesting. Okay, so my buddy Tim was at I guess he was an observer at an orgy years ago.
Oh, Jesus.
He walked by a room, and I won't tell you what John was doing in there.
Dude!
That same friend of mine, Tim, before the Inquirer, we tried to start a celebrity lookalike stripper business. And so we only had 4 people come in to audition. We had a Cher who was incredible. I mean, it was the whole turn back time look. We could have made a lot of money with her. We had a woman come in who I'm pretty sure she was a prostitute, and she didn't have a celebrity picked out. I said, well, you got to be a celebrity. And she said, well, I'll be one of the Cosby kids. And so so ultimately we assigned her Vanessa Huxtable. But no, one of the 4 people who came in was a Jean-Claude Van Damme lookalike. Looked nothing like Jean-Claude Van Damme. He had this teal, kind of remember the Speedo that Matt Damon wore in The Talented Mr. Ripley?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what he stripped down to. So that was the beginning of the end of our celebrity lookalike stripper business. So there's my Jean-Claude for you.
Gotcha. So, hey, Terry, good to see you. Lola and a couple others are bringing up Partridge Family, David Cassidy, any of the Partridges? I know how close you were to the Brady Bunch. Any relations with the Partridge Family?
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, there's a picture in the book of me with Shirley, David, and I'm forgetting his name, redhead, who's the
Danny Bonaducci.
Danny Bonaducci, of course. Yeah, they were great. I did an interview with the 3 of them when MTV was doing the search for the real Partridge Family. And as a callback, the girl who was cast in this reality show as the new Lori was Emma Stone, who was then known as Emily Stone. She was cast as the new Lori Partridge. And thank God that show didn't go because she ended up becoming this Oscar winner. But years later, when I was at Hallmark, we had David Cassidy come on, and it was just a few months before his passing. It was so hard because I, like a lot of the people here, adored him. He had said he was clean and sober. We could smell the alcohol in his breath. And it just kills me. No, I mean, I've had alcoholism in my family. A lot of us have dealt with this. It ain't easy. And it was so tragic that he lost that fight. But a great guy. Great, great, great heart. I got to know a lot of his friends, and only good things about this guy.
A lot of my fans, I can tell you from videos that I do, are big fans of the A-Team. That was a show we all grew up watching. George Papard?
Oh, God. Yeah. This is, so listen, if you buy this book of mine, stick with it as much as you can, because you'll probably hate me in the first 100 pages, because I really just did horrible things. And I love the A-Team, even though, John, the A-Team is what killed Happy Days. the A Team was up against Happy Days on Tuesdays, and that's what made the ratings go down. So yes, but I was assigned to go to the hospital and talk to the doctors after Mr. Papard died to find out the truth behind his death, and that was a horrible thing. And the nurse who I talked to through devious means ended up reading the article, and she called me and she said, William Keck, she said, I hope you're happy with that article because Mr. Papard is going to a place that you'll never go to. Now, I will say this, that I've become very good friends with the Dynasty cast. Linda Evans I spoke with last week. I don't know if your viewers remember John James and Pamela Sue Martin. Well, the original
I hold a devious, my flex. All right. One of my flexes is that you can mention any Dynasty episode or any Dallas episode and probably 40 to 50% of the Knots Landing episodes. And I can tell you verbatim what the plot line was around that particular period in time. Because my parents, Greek immigrants, their English wasn't so great. Okay. So even though we were children, either my older brother or I were assigned to watch with them. Often both of us, so that we could interpret whatever they missed. Who was sleeping with whom, who did what. So John James, I remember him going over to the Colbys, and, you know, when Emma lost her memory, second Fallon lost her memory and ended up with his brother. I've got it all. And most of my fans, followers, they remember this stuff because we talk about it all the time.
So let me just, you know, you said I could name anything. So let me name like a few props from Dynasty and see if you can kind of remember the storyline associated with it.
All right.
A China doll, broken in pieces.
Okay, so that would be Jeff's second wife, Claudia, thought that she was holding Lindsay's baby. She was holding Lindsay and wasn't, and then drops Lindsay over the building, collapses and crashes on the ground.
Very, very good. Yes. She did think it was Lindsay, but Fallon was watching up on the rooftop thinking that it was her real baby that she was holding, and the baby went over and crashed.
That's right. And she thought it was Lindsay. It's my Lindsay, and tossed it over.
That's exactly right. Silver baby rattle.
Silver baby rattle. Was that Linda? Was that a Linda Evans storyline?
No, that was Adam Carrington. That's how.
Yes, Adam, because he was in Bixby. He ended up taking off, and that's the only thing that Joan Collins had of him. And he was a lawyer in Billings, Montana. And they finally tracked him down in Billings, Montana, as a country lawyer.
The whole reason I mentioned Dynasty was George Papard. And George Papard was the first actor cast as Blake Carrington. And
I didn't know that.
Yes, they were all up at the Foley Mansion. And one of the actors he was on throughout the entire run of the show. We just actually mentioned him recently. He introduced himself on set to George Papard. George Papard would not talk to him. Ignored him. The idea was, I'm the star, you're one of the young people, and that's part of the reason that George Papard was let go before the pilot was ever finished. And they brought John Forsythe in, and he was legendary. So you know, I hear things like that. That doesn't justify what I did to Mr. Papard, but it makes me feel a little less guilty.
A little better.
Karma-wise.
Christian brings up Dynasty and the Rock Hudson kiss, which, if you were around in the 80s, that was a big deal. AIDS was coming. I mean, AIDS had been around for a while before that, but it wasn't really getting the push onto the news wire. People weren't really talking about it. It was viewed as this gay cancer. It was pushed down a little bit to some degree, and that brought it out. I mean, I remember that as a young kid getting groceries with my mom and seeing Rock Hudson's face with Linda Evans square front right on the Enquirer.
Yeah, it was scary. No, Mr. Hudson was gone before I came out to Los Angeles, but I will say that the story that I have connected to AIDS is one of the very first stories in the book, and it's my deepest confession. A lot of friends said, "Don't put this story in the book. You're going to look like an asshole, and nobody will ever forgive you for this." And I said, "You know what? I've got to tell everything. If I'm really going to come clean here, I can't just tell the stuff that makes me look okay." And so the story was, it was my very first story for the Enquirer. And I was sent to do an interview with, do you know who Dak Rambo is?
The way I remember Dak Rambo was on the Wonder Woman. He was the alien. He played the alien. And I think he also had a part in Dynasty as well.
Well, he was in Dallas.
That's right.
Bobby Ewing left, they brought him
Dusty.
in as
he was Dusty.
He was he was Jack Ewing, who
Ah, see,
was Marie Wilson's brother, and they were trying to pair him up with Priscilla Presley. You know, anyway, he was a gay actor, and he was one of the first people, very brave, to come out as being HIV positive. And so they sent me to do a deathbed interview with him in the hospital, and they sent me with kind of the hotshot reporter there that I was supposed to kind of emulate. And so we went to the hospital. We couldn't find him in his room. We went to get a bite to eat. We went back again. We couldn't find him in the hospital bed. So Brad was the name of the reporter. He said, we can go now. We have enough. I said, what do you mean we got enough? We never even saw Dak Rambo. We didn't even get to interview him or see him. He said, no, we don't want to be here all day. Just come with me. And so he took me to a diner, and he fabricated the entire deathbed interview from Dak Rambo.
Yeah, I do remember reading that part of the book right now. That shocked the hell out of me, because honestly, we all knew the Inquirer. We all had opinions of those papers, but it was the Inquirer. It wasn't the Examiner. There still was sort of like a little bit of if the Inquirer was here, well, the Examiner was down here. It wasn't that level.
For sure. And I will say that if the Inquirer editors had known what Brad was doing, he would have been fired immediately, because that's not the way we did things. I was freaking out. I had just joined. I'm like, oh my God, is this the way it works? I'm just going to be making up all these stories. And I found out that they spent a ton of money to send us all over the world to get the true story. But no, this was fabricated. So I'll tell you, in the book, sadly, Dak and all of his main family have passed on. So I couldn't apologize to him as I tried to do in the book. So instead, I had Cherie Wilson from Dallas. She played April, his ex-wife. She wrote a nice essay about who Dak really was. And she condemned what I did, as she should, but she also gave the readers a chance to know who this man was and what a brave thing he did coming out at that time and talking about this disease when nobody else was acknowledging it. So again, I try to apologize when I can, and when I can't, I go to their friends and family to have them speak on their behalf.
What's going on, Hyde? Good to see you. Doreen says the Inquirer and the Star didn't always print truth, in my opinion. I think we just proved that's not even just an opinion, Doreen. It's unfortunately the truth, although based on policy, the Inquirer tried to make sure what was printed was true. But if they didn't know what they didn't know, they didn't know. Somebody mentioned wrestlers. Any wrestlers? Hulk Hogan, Vince McMahon, anybody like that?
No. I was at the Young and the Restless when Jesse Ventura did an episode, but he behaved himself, so no bad Jesse stories. Or no. I'm sorry.
Elizabeth Taylor.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, so that's so there's two high-speed chase stories in this book. One is Elizabeth Taylor, and one is Britney Spears. And so the two stories are as different as night and day. And I kind of say, when I was at the Inquirer, I had like a little angel on one shoulder saying, do the right thing, William, do the right thing. And a little devil saying, no, come on, go for it. Get the story. Come on, do it. They deserve it. They make a ton of money. So the Elizabeth Taylor story was, we knew she was going to the hospital to have a procedure of some kind, but we didn't know what hospital. So they had me stake out her home all night. And I was copying down all the license plates of the flower deliveries and the cat food delivery. And I mean, every person coming and going could be a potential source that we would follow up with later and say, hey, we know you're going to Elizabeth Taylor's house. Would you like to be a source? But I ended up, the gates opened up. Elizabeth came out. She was being driven to the hospital, and I followed. And Elizabeth lived up in the Bel Air area, a lot of windy roads. And they saw I was following them. They went faster. I went faster. They went faster. And it was getting a little scary. This is before Princess Diana passed away, but it could have gone in that direction. And this was a point where, in my mind, the little angel went out. And I said, this woman is not going to the Oscars. She's not going to the set. Even if she were, it wouldn't be right to be following her. But she was going to the hospital to have a procedure. And this is somebody who I love. She was one of our celebrity legends. And I pulled over to the side of the road and I let her go. I did not make the same move when I was in the high-speed chase with Britney Spears. We chased her all the way down to the end of that story and saw her getting out at the gas station. She was with Federline. She was with Kevin Federline at the time. And everything you heard, she would go into the bathroom at the gas station with no shoes on and order some Cheetos. But, again, she was fun. I love Britney. God bless her.
That's pop culture. I mean, Britney embraced pop culture, and she gave us, for better or for worse, some amazing moments in pop culture. Ronaldo brings up Zsa Zsa Gabor. I remember you speaking of the Gabor sisters.
Yes, I do have a Zsa Zsa Gabor. I mean, this is crazy. Yes, I do. So Zsa Zsa's husband, a man named Prince Frederick von Anhalt, he's one of these celebrities who just wanted to be in the Inquirer every week. I mean, he bought his princedom. He bought himself Zsa Zsa, basically. And if he wasn't in, he would do something to get attention. And he would call me. And one time he called, he said, William, he said, I've been kicked out of Gold's Gym. Oh, it was Bailey's Health at the time, Bailey's Health Spa. And I said, well, what happened, Prince Frederick? Well, I was wearing my very expensive French Speedo, and the women were explaining they could see my manhood through the Speedo. So I said, well, listen, let's do this. Let's have you wear the Speedo. Let's take you to the Beverly Hills Hotel. I'll bring our cameraman, and we'll do a before and after picture, wet and dry, and we'll leave it up to the readers to see if they can see your manhood. And he went for it. The guy went for it. Another time, he was hit by a car, and he was in the ER, and he called me. He said, William, come on over. I'm going to give you the exclusive. I've been hit by a car. And so I rushed to the hospital. He's like, what took you so long? The Entertainment Tonight is here. And I said, well, what about our exclusive? He said, well, they're going to get the Zsa Zsa exclusive. I'm giving you my exclusive. And so Zsa Zsa had to go to the mansion to do her interview. So he had no ride home. He was released from the hospital. I drive him home, and he said, pull over on the side of the road. I'll reenact when I got hit by the car. And so I brought him back up to Zsa Zsa. I mean, she was mortified. The last time I saw Freddie was at Zsa Zsa's, I want to say her 95th birthday. And very sadly, there was not a lot of Zsa Zsa left. I mean, she had a couple limbs removed. And Freddie, though, he was acting as like a carnival sideshow promoter, because he had Zsa Zsa at the birthday party in a private room. And he had some press that he was allowed to bring in there. And some of the friends and family got to go in there. But I didn't get in there. So I had to peek through the window, and I saw Zsa Zsa getting a piece of her cake. But when the cake came out into the party, since there was no Zsa Zsa, we all looked up at a giant portrait of Zsa Zsa and sang happy birthday to the portrait.
Oh my God. So, almost like a weekend at Bernie's, I'm afraid, to make the comparison, but wow.
It was totally that.
Lola asked about Nimoy or Shatner.
This is a setup. This is a setup.
This is not a setup. Before the show started, I told Will, I go, you are, I mean, this is the group. You met our memories. Now, for a lot of us, we were really young. For some of us, I especially on Facebook, I have a younger boomer group of people that relate more to Gen X. Anyone born like 61 to 65 is almost pissed that they're boomers because they used to be Gen X and somebody changed the years. But we grew up with these people. That's why we're asking.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Lola, because yes, there is a chapter on William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy. The Nimoy story is that when I was at USA Today, J.J. Abrams was doing the new Star Trek movies. And they had just announced that Leonard Nimoy was going to be in the new Star Trek in some capacity. So I thought it would be a great idea to try to get Leonard Nimoy and have him meet Zach Quinto, who was on Heroes, the new Spock, for the first time. So I arranged for them to meet at Leonard Nimoy's theater at the Griffith Observatory. But Leonard wanted to talk to me first. And so we get on the phone, and we're having a great conversation. He's like, yes, I'm very excited to meet Zach. He seems like a good guy. We spoke on the phone. And so near the end of my phone call with Nimoy, I said, hey, one idea I had, Mr. Nimoy. What about if you were to bring the ears and you can maybe, show Zach how to use the ears? He's like, what? And I said, yeah, I just thought it could be fun. If you have another pair around, maybe. And he's like, Keck, if you pull any of that ear shit, I'm out of this. And I'm like, and he was serious. I thought he was going to cancel. I was really freaked out.
Have you ever seen his music video, the Bilbo Baggins bag, where he's doing like the song about the Hobbit?
No.
You need to Google Leonard Nimoy, Bilbo Baggins. if there's anything left on the history of on the surface of the planet that embarrasses him after he literally sang that back in the 70s, he really has no penchant to put that out there like that.
Yeah,
But
well,
I can
okay.
see that he was, because he became a very serious actor. I mean, there was a shift with Leonard Nimoy for sure.
You know, and you'll appreciate this, John. Even before Star Trek, I discovered Leonard Nimoy as the host of In Search of.
In Search of.
You remember that with like Bigfoot and
yeah.
I knew the voice, and then it was only after that I discovered the Star Trek reruns. I'm like, oh my god, that's the In Search of guy.
So I did it backwards, but I spent many nights not able to sleep because In Search of said that we're 20 years away from the next ice age, 15 years away from the sun going nova, aliens, anything and everything. That show scared the hell out of me. Baggins, thank you, Linda. Bilbo Baggins. Yeah, Google it. Travin nailed it. It's the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins. It is, dude. If you've never tripped out on mushrooms and want to know what that would feel like, watch that video. That's what I think it would feel like. Bilbo Baggins.
Wasn't that one of the hobbits from Lord
of
the Rings?
It was. Yeah, he sings a song about it.
All right, I'm excited. I'm going to check this out.
Dude, it's bad. You will thank me later.
But you know,
so how about William Shatner? I happen to know firsthand, and I also know of your stories, but is William Shatner the delightful person we all hear that he is?
You know, I always got along great with Bill, and I'll tell you that when I was at Home and Family, I was a producer for 7 years on a show on the Hallmark Channel called Home and Family, and he liked the show. And so every time Bill Shatner came on, I would produce him. And he had a great sense of humor. The deal with Bill is that I found if you bow to him, if you're a fan of him, he sort of just won't respond to that. But if you kind of give it back to him a little bit, he's kind of thrown and he appreciates and respects that. So yes, I will say he is a nice guy. I think you're bringing this up because at one of the Fanboy Expos this year, I was flown out there to do a Q&A panel with him. And I had prepared a lot of questions that he had never been asked before, which is not easy. So I was really excited for this panel, and the whole audience was out there, and I'm kind of waiting. And all of a sudden I see him arrive in his little, speed cart that he's going around in these days. And I said, Mr. Shatner, I said, it's so nice to see you again. I'm William from Hallmark. I'm your moderator. He's like, I don't use moderators. And I said, well, yeah, I actually am out here from California. He's like, I don't care. Introduce me. So I went out there. Shatner seems like a good guy. He is a good guy. Yes. He was not the nicest this day to me. But I introduced him and I said, ladies and gentlemen, you may know him from TJ Hooker. You may know him from Star Trek. And I see him as I'm listing off all of his credits, his awards. He's going like this, faster, faster. And I'm like, he needs no introduction. William Shatner, ladies and gentlemen. So he comes out. He does a great job. He's in a good mood after his Q&A that he did himself. And I said, Mr. Shatner, I would love to give you a copy of my book. And he said, oh, okay. And I said, can I get a picture? He's like, well, you can give me the book, but I'm not going to be in the picture with the book because it'll be like I'm endorsing it. And to the guy's credit, he gets a lot of money for his endorsements, and he didn't know what was in the book. But I really wanted a picture with the book. So I said, okay, well, we'll do a picture anyway. And so his manager was taking the photo, and he was up really, really close in our faces. And Mr. Shatner said, get back, you're too close, get back. So the manager gets back, and not only can you see my book is in the basket of Mr. Shatner's electric cart, as if he just made a purchase. So God bless him. He helped me out a lot. Thank you. We didn't intend to. I see Cindy asking about Robin Williams.
Yeah. Robin Williams is one of the most beloved. I mean, the emotion people have when it comes to Robin Williams. John Candy, Robin Williams. Those are two that people bring up constantly as just very emotional response to Robin.
Yeah, I mean, I met him a few times, and he was the sweetest. And I would have been crushed. If he was a jerk, I mean, I couldn't have taken that. He was so sweet. And you'll see in the book that I'm a big fan of reunions. I produced a lot of reunion shows, getting cast together. I was there covering them all over whenever they did one at South Fork or at the Carrington Mansion or Happy Days. But Robin Williams was doing a show with Sarah Michelle Gellar. And I said, if you ever do a Mork and Mindy reunion, if you bring Pam Dauber on, I would love to be able to be there for that. So they cast Pam, and they called me, and they said, we want you to have the exclusive. And I think it was that week I was laid off from TV Guide. And I'm like, oh my God, can I please just do this one interview as my last interview? And they said, sure, go ahead. So I did the only sit down with Robin Williams and Pam Dauber, Mork and Mindy. And I always try to get a photo for my Christmas cards. And so I wanted to get a pair of Robin Williams Mork for Mork suspenders, the rainbow suspenders. And the only pair I could find was at it was a children's pair of suspenders at a costume store. And so I show up to this interview and I have these child suspenders on, and they're just pulling my jeans up so tight. So the whole time I'm interviewing Pam and Robin, I'm like in pain. I'm shifting my pants and I'm kind of moving around, and they're noticing something's up. And at one point, Pam Dauber mentioned the word balls. And I said, I gotta tell you, mine have been killing me this entire interview. They thought it was hysterical. And Robin, he looked down at me and he said one of his classic lines, I can tell what religion you are. And the fact that I got a Robin Williamsism at that moment, Lola's asking about John Candy. There's a new documentary and a book out about John Candy now. I hate to say that John Candy's was one of the celebrities whose funerals I crashed. And I was in a chapel when all of his famous friends were trying to come in with the casket to inter it, and I wouldn't get up. And so I look back and I see Rhea Perlman and Danny DeVito and some of the SCTV cast, Catherine O'Hara, and security's coming and they're saying we've got to get you out of here. And I had pretended to be a mourner for the previous service. There was a Latin woman who had just passed. She was a hairdresser, and I pretended to be one of her family. I didn't speak any Spanish at all, so I don't know how I ever got away with this. But I mean, again, ultimately, I decided I had to do the right thing, and I got up before I was deeper humiliated, and I let Mr. Candy be properly interred. But yeah, no, I mean, I've been, we have family members who've passed away. If I found out that some reporter was trying to sneak in to my family member's service, I'd smack them. So when I tell you about one of those celebrities who smacked me, I deserved it. I mean, you can say that there's no reason for violence, but I was in his territory. I scared his mother, apparently. There had been somebody there earlier who was looking in through his windows. I wish he hadn't taken to give me his fist, but I was playing in a dangerous area.
John Belushi or Eddie Murphy?
John Belushi was gone long before I came out to LA. I never had any interactions with him. I covered some premieres that Eddie Murphy was at. No, I never had any. Eddie Murphy is the kind of guy who did not like doing press. He sometimes wouldn't even show up to his own premieres, and if he did, it was for photos. So I never got a chance to interview him. Big fan. I love Eddie Murphy.
Well, and now the other side of it. So we're about 45 minutes in. The other side of this is, so these were the people you interacted with back then, but now you've got this whole second act where you're working these reunions, where you're talking to them today. And the convention circuit's a strange thing because it's not getting the celebrities, for the most part, at the height of their careers. For some of them, it's a way to keep things going. For some of them, they realize, it's a great way to connect with fans. Some do it happily. Some do it almost begrudgingly. I've had some great interactions and I've had some disheartening interactions. True. But you get to be in the back room. You get to be in the green room. You get to prep them. You get to talk to them before coming out. Most recently, I mean, I got to see you with Lindsay Wagner. I joked with you earlier. That was the interview that got away because there's just no containing Lindsay. When she starts talking about the metaphysics of what she believes and stuff, it's just let her go because what are you going to do? But talk to me a little bit about the current reunions you've been a part of. Have you been gaga? Have you been fanboying? Have you been like on stage at any point been like, I can't believe I'm next to this person? I mean, what does that feel like?
Well, I've become very close to the Dallas cast. And so over the last 2 years, I've moderated a lot of panels with Patrick Duffy and Linda Gray and Charlene Tilton, that whole crew. But about a year and a half ago, Priscilla Presley joined the panel, and she played Jenna Wade
Yep.
on Dallas, and she'd never taken part in any of these reunions. So I was super excited, but also I was a little nervous. I mean, it hadn't been that long since Lisa Marie had passed away, and she seemed like she was, very, very sensitive, and so I treaded very carefully, and I saw that Patrick Duffy was being very protective of her. He had his arm around her, and I knew if I said anything remotely invasive, I would have been done. They all would have turned on me. They like me, but if I did anything to disrespect Priscilla, not that I wanted to,
No, of
but I
course.
really wanted to get a question about Elvis, and so I asked. I said, do you think Elvis passed away a year before Dallas started? He died in 77. Dallas started in 78. I said, do you think that Elvis would have been a Dallas fan? And Priscilla kind of lit up and she said, of course he would have been. I could see him living at South Fork.
Yeah.
He loved horses. He loved money. He would have loved that show. He would have loved that I was on that show. And I'll tell you, when I went to Graceland, I was taking the tour for the first time just a few months ago, and I was in the kitchen and I looked in one of the cabinets. There was a little fence over it, a little protection over it, but I could see through, and I saw a South Fork mug, and so I'm assuming that Priscilla brought a South Fork mug back to Graceland and put it in there, which I just thought was just so.
So
Awesome.
I got to meet Priscilla from the front side of it. That's one of the things that amazes me. I will see some voice actor from some anime cartoon that I may or may not recognize. I have two young kids, 21-year-old, 13-year-old. Some of the anime I recognize, some I don't. But there would be lines around the corner for some of these young kids, and maybe deservedly so. That's fine. And yet, Priscilla Presley, Elvis Presley's wife, Lisa Marie's mother, who married Michael Jackson. I mean, talk about pop culture and connections. And there are times when there's not a soul waiting in line to say hi to Priscilla Presley. And let me tell you, of the people that are genuine there, I've seen her come out from behind the table and full on hug her fans and take amazing pictures with them. And I'm not saying she'll do that every time. If you go there, that may not be your experience, but I've seen it, and I think it's amazing.
Well, John, I got to say that amazes me, because the show that I saw her at was called The Hollywood Show. They do it about 2 or 3 times a year in Burbank. And Priscilla, I have never seen so many people show up for any celebrity as much as they did for Priscilla. They were lined up all day outside of the convention center. She was charging a lot of money. She made over $100,000.
Good.
For this one day she was there. So I mean, I can't. That must have been a very rare moment that nobody.
I think it depends, right? It depends on the con. It depends on what they're drawing at that con. Dallas, Linda Gray, Patrick Duffy. I grew up with on The Man from Atlantis. As a little kid, I would do the dolphin kick in the pool at 5 years old, and I remember doing it. That was because of Patrick Duffy. They didn't have the line I would have expected. And that was a slower con. I love Fanboy Expo. In this instance, for whatever reason, it was a little slower than I would have expected. That might have played into it. But they had such great conversations with their fans, and I could see it.
For sure. And Fanboy kind of gears more towards sci-fi. I mean, the Lord of the Rings guys, the Goonies guys, they were mobbed. And fortunately or unfortunately, the Dallas cast was seated right across from the Goonies and the Lord of the Rings guys. So, you couldn't get more different fans there. But, this was at that event when they were at South Fork for a fan event. They were mobbed for 3 solid days in a row. It's just a matter of where you go to play.
How about Sean Astin? How about the Sean Astin? We've got Mouth. The Goonies. What's your relationship there? Anything that you can talk about that gives us some insight? Sean Astin is now president of the Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah, like his mother was. Like Patty Duke. I met his father. His father. Some people forget this. You know who Sean Astin's dad was, right?
Sure, John Astin.
John Astin Gomez.
Gomez from Addams Family.
Yep. Yeah, I interviewed him in a cemetery once, and he was terrific. But yeah, Sean was great. You never know. I'd never met Sean before. I didn't know what to expect. You hear different things from different people. He was so lovely, but he was testing me. because I think he's had probably some shitty moderators, and I can be that sometimes. Sometimes I'm great. You could say with Lindsay, I don't know, was it her?
Well, I don't think anybody could have kept Lindsay from talking about, and she's earned the right at this point. You don't cut her off. You just let her talk, and that's the way that is.
Exactly. But no, he was testing me, and I think I caught him off guard that I asked some questions that he really had not been asked before, and it was really kind of personal questions, but they related to the Goonies. So I asked him, and the whole a lot of the kids were there from the Goonies, what their own childhood bedrooms were like. What posters they had up on their walls. There we, exactly, yes, yeah. And I think he really kind of appreciated that he wasn't just asked the same thing over and over again, and it made it fun for the entire panel up there. And afterwards, he turned to me and said, "You know what? You did a really good job there. We've done a few of these things, and you surprised me." And that was so sweet to get that acknowledgement. And I usually get that. I will tell you that I was ripped apart recently by somebody after a panel, and this was very surprising because it was a show that I loved. And I had never met this woman before, and I had done a lot of work to make this a great panel. And it was with three women, and it was Three's Company. And one of the women on that panel, two of them came up to me and said, "That was great job." And the other woman came up, and I thought she said the same thing. I said, "Oh, thank you." And she's like, "No, that was terrible. You embarrassed us. You made us look awful." And I was mortified. And I said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And the deal was, and I'll say it. The deal is that there are some sets that are happy. There are some sets that aren't so happy. And I think when Suzanne Summers left the cast of Three's Company, it kind of just set the whole show off in the wrong way. And it wasn't the best, happiest set after that. So I made the mistake of asking Joyce, what did you do to make Priscilla Barnes and Jenny Lee Harrison feel like part of the group? And Jenny Lee and Priscilla looked at each other and they said nothing was done to make it. And I think Joyce felt really humiliated. But you know what? Shame on her. She should have made them feel better. And listen, I felt terrible, but you know what? You don't do that. I mean, I was really thrown. I had another Dallas panel right after that. I had a regroup. Someone just asked about Shannon Doherty.
Yeah.
Shannon gave me the finger once at a club. We were in our 20s, and I asked for a photo, and she flipped me off. And I love that, because there's certain celebrities that you expect that from. Shannon was she was Shannon. She was a rebel, and I think she took pride in that. And she
played the type. She wanted to make sure, at that point in time. Now, talk about development and changeover. These are celebrities. These aren't people we know. I've never had coffee with Shannon Doherty. But over the span of her life, you saw change and development and growth and, changing away from that bad girl and to this icon that fought a fight for a long time on her own terms. And I think, Gen X has a relationship. To look at a show like 90210 and realize we've lost two of the main characters from that show. Yeah, they played teenagers on the show, but they were Gen Xers. They were in their late 20s, some of them early 30s when they were on the show.
Yeah, Dylan and Brenda are gone. It blows my mind. I will say we got a really, really weird call regarding Shannon. When I was at the Inquirer, a man called and he said that he had been hired. He'd been hired by Shannon Doherty or Shannon Doherty's goon to kill Tori Spelling. Now, this sounds like a really ridiculous, far out there rumor, but we followed up on it. And we spent an entire day, and this is a long time ago. It's before a lot of devices now where you can kind of track things. But we spent an entire day at the hitman's house where he was calling up Shannon, trying to get her to admit to this thing. And we couldn't get it proven, so we dropped the whole thing. Probably fake, but you know what? At that time, there was a lot of partying going on. I know things were very, very bad for a long time between Tori and Shannon. But I'm going to say no. I do not think that Shannon
I'm going to
actually.
say no, but I mean, think about it. The 90s were the era of Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding. On paper, who would believe that story?
There you go.
Lorena Bobbitt, Amy, the Long Island Lolita, the stories that were hitting the legitimate news sources in the 90s, a blue dress hanging in someone's closet months later almost brought down the White House. So, I mean, I don't think anything's out of bounds. We talk a lot about the 70s and 80s. The 90s were off the chain when it came to stories that hit the media.
Oh, yeah. No, and and back then when I was first in LA and I was in my 20s, I would go to clubs and they all went to the same clubs. It wasn't like they were going to the celebrity clubs and then we were going to the regular guy clubs. We would all mix together and you would have these interactions. I remember one time I saw Tina Yothers from Family Ties passed out, in a corner of some club. Thank God she got up and went on with her life. But yeah, so you could get scooped just by going out in a weekend with your camera.
Dude, ever hit the Viper Room? Any interactions with River Phoenix, Johnny Depp, any of that crew later? Because you would have been around the same age.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Halloween. I think it was like 33 years ago. I think since River passed away. We just had the anniversary.
Yeah.
I never got to meet River because I had just come to LA and he passed. Johnny Depp, yeah, for sure. I did a big interview at the Chateau Marmont with Johnny Depp. He was 3 hours late to the interview. And he is so charming, that the minute he walks in, he's like, "Hey man, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it, Johnny Depp." And God love him. He gave me, I think, like a 2-hour interview, went very, very personal with me. So it was worth the 3-hour wait for Johnny Depp. But shame on me. I had not done my homework properly. And everyone knows this now, but the story of Wino Forever. He had that tattoo, Wino Forever, and I asked him, what is that? And it was Winona Forever.
Winona.
And he had it changed, after the breakup. So he kind of got around that question.
People ask me all the time how, as a content creator focused on, Gen X, you're going to run out of stories, and I'm like, no, at least no time not in the years I have left. I mean, 30 years span the 70s through the 70s, 80s, 90s. And we're not done making stories as a generation. I just did a video asking the question, are we aging differently than our parents and our grandparents? Would my dad at 55 years old be wearing a T-shirt, shorts, and a baseball cap, talking? They didn't look like we look at our age. I am older than Mr. Roper was when he joined Three's Company. I'm the same age as Mr. Furley. I'm older than Diabetes. Wilford Brimley was on Cocoon. Listen, I get that bourbon for breakfast and filterless cigarettes ages people. I understand they didn't have sunscreen, but I don't think we look, act, or feel like they did. So we still have stories that we're going to tell.
It's trippy. I'm older and have been now for a few years than Rue McClanahan was when she started on the Golden Girls. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, they were little old ladies, I remember. They were, sexy little old ladies, but they were still old ladies. So I think I want to think, well, Blanche was. I guess Blanche.
I'll give Blanche. I'm not so sure about B. Arthur. I mean, wonderful woman, amazing actress, actor, phenomenal sport. I mean, just the woman had a great career. Sexy? I don't know.
Yeah, well, she gave me a sexy interview. I mean, I will say I got to interview.
Talk to us about B. Arthur. I'd love to hear a little bit there.
It was really just, we've all heard it now. At the time, it was kind of, no one knew about it, but now everyone knows just about how B and Betty just did not get along at all. And I remember I interviewed the Golden Girls, each of them, shortly before they passed. And I got a really good interview, actually, with Rue McClanahan about what it was about Betty that so annoyed B. And I think they just were very different people. In between breaks and the Golden Girls, Betty would kind of go out to interact with the audience, whereas B tried to stay in character. And there was just something about Betty's happy, sweet self that really just dug under B. Arthur, and it made them really just not like each other for at least half that show.
From things I've read as well, Betty was more likely, more apt to be okay with the self-deprecating jokes, because she realized it was her character. It was not Betty that was dumb, stupid, naive. It was the character. Whereas with B, the writer's jokes, although yes, they were about the character, they were of a more physical nature. They mocked her stature, they mocked her looks. How many jokes can you write about her being mistaken for a man before she started to take it personally? And I know that that's one of the reasons she wanted to leave when they went on to Golden Palace. B didn't go along for the ride. From what I've read, she was done with that part of it.
Well, I've heard that, and I will say that I remember one of the Comedy Central roasts. Those really dirty roasts they did. And I don't know. Do I have to be clean on this show? I mean,
no, you don't have to be clean. We're all adults.
Well, I forget who the comedian was, but they were up there on a stage and they were roasting whoever was being roasted, and they said, "You are so ugly. I wouldn't fuck you with B. Arthur's dick." And they cut to B. Arthur, who was in the audience, and she was dying laughing. So that shows me that she has a sense of humor.
I'm sure. I just think it's, like I said, does it take a lot of writing skill to write the joke 15 times, 60? I think that is hilarious, and I think she would take it as such. But it shows lazy writing to keep throwing the same joke at her left and right. Yeah, I agree I think that's what it was.
Maybe she also saw a pilot script for Golden Palace and realized it was a piece of crap, and
she left when she should have.
That. What is your view? Are you a fan of things going as long as they can and reboots, or should things kind of just run their course and get out before they fall apart?
So the popular opinion is to say leave our stuff alone, right? That's the popular opinion. That plays well on my videos. That plays well towards the general mentality. But then I realized a lot of the movies that I saw and loved, a lot of the shows that I saw and loved were remakes in and of themselves. Yes. We talked about Three's Company. We wouldn't have had Three's Company if they didn't remake Man of the House from Great Britain as an English show and bring it over. A lot of our movies, we may not have realized as we were watching them, but they were remakes of other movies. So part of me is like, okay, if someone comes up with a second, here's what I don't like. If you're going to change the premise, if you're going to change the cast so strongly that, we don't even recognize them as the original character, if you're going to change each and every problematic thing about it, then change the name too. Because if all you're keeping is the name, then don't do it. But Maverick came out. I thought it wasn't a reboot. It was a continuation. So I like that. If they come out with the Goonies 2 and it's largely the same cast and we get to complete the story to the next level, I just look at it as a long anticipated sequel. I never would have liked Back to the Future as much without part 2 and part 3. So I'm okay with doing well-written sequels where the cast has some input, where they pay homage to the original. I'm not okay with them I didn't even bother to watch the new Roadhouse because from what they just changed too much. I don't want, no, leave that. You could have made you could have called it something else and nobody would have realized. It could be inspired by Roadhouse. Call it something else.
And speaking of that, what happened to this Dirty Dancing sequel that Jennifer Grey supposedly did 5 years ago and it's never came out? Why do Dirty Dancing without Patrick Swayze? I mean,
well, the movie Roofman that just came out with somebody help me. It was filmed here in Charlotte. I cannot think of the actor's name. He owns the rights to Ghost and wants to remake Ghost, playing the part that was played by somebody will tell me in the comments, played by the part that was played by Patrick Swayze. What delayed the script there is Whoopi Goldberg's part was so problematic based on stereotypes and tropes and things that today don't play as well, that's it. Channing Tatum owns the rights to Ghost. And they're having problems. I'm like, so leave it alone. Honestly, so maybe that's not one we remake because Whoopi Goldberg won an Oscar for that role. And yes, maybe there was a stereotype. Maybe there were tropes involved. I won't argue that. But we can't judge the past with today's eyes and go back and change it because what we learned from yesterday, for better or for worse, gets us to today. Go back and change that. It's like Back to the Future. You ruin the present by changing the past. Thank you, Dorian.
I mean, there are certain movies that are just a great story. I mean, Star is Born, good premise. I could see that happening again with
Yep.
Beyonce one day, she could play that part. But Ghost wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't a great script. It was a great grouping of three actors who brought that movie to life. And, without Demi Moore, without Whoopi, without Patrick, I don't know if it would have worked at all. And I certainly don't.
Tony Goldwyn, I'd go 4. I think he was phenomenal. I mean, the guy played the best friend that turned into the scummiest scumbag. I mean, that was awesome. Who didn't cheer when he went down? Great cast.
Leave Ghost alone. I think we leave Ghost alone.
But people say leave Goonies alone. I don't know. If I hate the part 2, if it's ever made, then so what? It doesn't hurt part 1. I mean, that's the thing for me. I can pretend it never happened. I'm good with it.
Yeah, in the Goonies panel, Corey Feldman, near the end of it, he asked the audience, he said, so if they do Goonies 2, which they are, do you want us in it? Are we the stars? And of course, the audience clapped. No, I do. I mean, I guess I want to see them. Kind of like, what's the point? I don't know how that's going to play. I don't know how a story with, kids in their mid-50s and an adventure is going to play. But do you bring?
I don't know that they're on the. So here's what I love about that story. We're all Goonies, okay? And plus, we're definitely Goonies because Sean Astin swore us in. There were a bunch of us that were there at that convention that we actually put our hands up, and Sean Astin swore us in as certified official Goonies.
You're
so
honorary Goonies.
I'm an honorary Goonie. And I'm in my 50s. So I'm kind of okay with that. I kind of would if I was writing it, I would have throwbacks to the original and then come forward in time and kind of see, can they do what they did as kids, as adults? So every year I go back to Buffalo. Okay, real quick story. I go back with a buddy of mine who's watching right now, Hyde Park Ninjas, and we go back to where we were in our 20s, right? We relive our 20s. We do a pub crawl. We hit a lot of the bars we hit in our 20s. We do a shot of Crown at every single bar. We start around 8. We go till 4 in the morning. It's like 12, 13 bars, 12, 13 shots, 12, 13 16-ounce Labatt Blues. It's a weekend of going to a Bills game. It's doing what I did in my 20s and my 50s. And there's something amazing about it, because could I do it every day? No. If I did it every day, number 1, I'd be a loser. Number 2, I'd be dead. But showing that 20-year-old is still here, Will, when I tell you it was transformative the first time I did that, seeing that not all the physical manifestations of my memories are gone. Some of them look exactly the same. It's like you walk into that bar. How many of you have gone back to a bar you were in at 22 and had your feet stick on the same floor and have the same dance floor there in the same bar? It's like traveling back in time. I got to reconnect with 20-year-old me, not just at bars. I went to the places I used to work. I went to Knox Hall at the University of Buffalo. It was transformative. And I think the movie can do the same thing, having 55-year-old Goonies reach across time and hold hands with their younger selves and show they can still do it.
I hope so. I would love that. Maybe do kind of a Freaky Friday kind of a thing or something. Because I think about when I was in my, they were younger than 20s. They were
right
13 and 12.
Yeah, of course. They were young kids.
Not only is it these celebrity stories, I read about all this horrible thing I did just as a kid. I hopping into people's pools when they weren't home and building forts and, little traps and, having my friends get in the trap and keeping them there and stealing dirty magazines from the pervert down the street. These are great things. But if I did these in my 50s, I'd be in jail.
So no, not that, but I'm saying, can these 55-year-old Goonies still save the day? I guess that's what it is. I don't want to see any 55-year-old doing the truffle shuffle. That's okay. That was borderline bullying back then. I get it. But can they still save the day? Can they go on that adventure?
In the time we have left, why don't we give it a try? Why don't we meet up and see if we can get into a cave, find some treasure, and if we can pull it off and we can get away with it, then you know what, Corey and company, they should be able to do the same thing. And
listen, from what I gathered from that panel, throw enough money at them, they'll do anything. Absolutely. Martha Plimpton said it. Give me the money, pay me. She goes, because I didn't get paid for the first one.
That's right. Yeah, I asked them what they all did with their big, windfall. But they looked at me like, what windfall? Nothing. They bought a candy bar.
So here's something I ask any guest that I bring on.
Okay, my battery's about to die. So let's.
Okay, real quickly.
Yes.
What is the greatest thing about growing up Gen X? If you had to say one thing that is that you would, this is what made it the best ever because of the way you grew up.
I think it was summer vacations. I think it was just being away from not having these things.
Okay.
And instead of watching other people's adventures, you went out there and made your own adventure. The kind of things I just talked about, making forts and falling into rivers. I mean, I felt like I got to live a life like a Goonie. I got to live a life like the Stand By Me kids. Didn't find a dead body, thank God. But that's what I value most about living in the 80s without all this high tech.
Kristen asks real quickly, can we buy an autographed copy of your book?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. You can contact me. So my book is called When You Step Upon a Star, and my website is whenyoustepUponAstar.com. And if you go onto my website, you can contact me. I'll get your email, and I will send you an autographed copy. I would love to do that. You're so sweet. It would be my honor.
How much is the book, people ask?
$25.
Cheap at twice the price.
$25. But you know what? You're going to get over 200 photos in this thing.
No, dude, it's awesome.
Yeah, loaded with photos you've never seen before of all these reunions I did and some of the wacky stuff I did at the Inquirer. So, I think it's worth it. If it's not, no returns. You're stuck. Give it to somebody else. Pass it on.
All right. Well, before your battery dies, I will stop the recording. Guys, thank you so much. This is a little different than what we normally do, but I knew that William would have a lot of great stories for us. So watch out. Next week, I'm on the road. I will be in Rhode Island at the Rhode Island Comic-Con traveling with Blockbuster Video as part of the Blockbuster Video experience. If you happen to be anywhere near Rhode Island, up in New England, November 7th through the 9th, come out and say hi. Otherwise, I will see you guys this Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Trivia. It's been great. Thank you so much. Peace. Love you guys.